Hello everybody, welcome back to our channel kaviwebdesigns, and today I'm going to tell you all about HTML cinematics. Now, but before we jump into our topic, let's go to the table of content to see where we are and what we did previously. Now, as you can see in our table of content, we have done all of these chapters until here, and I have done style guide. I have also done style guide because I have done HTML computer code here, HTML style guide here. Now here previously we have done HTML computer code, HTML and HTML style guide, and I left HTML cinematics for today. What are HTML cinematic elements? A HTML cinematic clearly describes its meaning to both the browser and the developer. Here's an example of non-cinematic elements. Here div and span. The div and span tells us nothing about its content. So it doesn't tell us. If you try finding the meaning of div, it will probably be something else because div doesn't have a clear meaning. But in our example of a real cinematic element, here form, table and article, they all describe content clearly. So that's the power of cinematic elements. And you need at least more than 3 cinematic elements to create a good code for the developer to read and the browser to read. Here are some cinematic elements that could be used to define different parts of a web page. Number 1, we have article, which clearly describes that it's going to be an article. Number 2, we have aside. Aside is in the middle zone of cinematic and non-cinematic, because aside, some people don't know what is aside. So aside means that it will come to the side. Aside means it comes like a section, but come the side. It will come the side like a aside, like the side said. Here we have details. The detail element is clearly talking about that the element can be used to write details in it. The same for fig caption, which is just means figure caption, like for pictures and all. We have the figure, which means like a person. If the footer, which means the end of the page, the header, the start of the page, the main, the middle of the page, the mark, which means it's gonna highlight it with a yellow highlight, and nav means navigator bar, section, which means like a section like a div but more understandable like a section. Summary just means like a summary telling about all the things you learned today, and time telling about the time, of course. Now let's go to our next one, which shows how you're supposed to style all of your web pages. So we're supposed to start with the header first, navigator second, so people can just scroll through all of the sections and articles you have. And here we're starting with the section, where after the section we have an article, so the section can just talk about some stuff like something about that, and then the article tells the thing that you just told in the section more clearer, and the aside just give some extra content to make it feel like it's more like lookable and more like click worthy. And here we have our footer, where in our footer there could be like a email address, sending like a contact form and all. HTML section element. The HTML section element defines a section in a document. According to W3C's HTML documentation, a section is thematic grouping of content, typically with a heading. Here are some examples of where a section element can be used. As I told you, sections can have like chapters. Suppose like chapter 1 talking about a story, and introduction. It could be like an introduction. Hi, my name is Bhavik Reddy and I specialize in cybersecurity and all. And here we could have news items. That means you could just tell what happened today, what is the breaking news today. Or we could just have a simple contact information form, which could suppose like you have a portfolio, where someone likes a portfolio and they want to buy a portfolio. So the section could be used for that contact information, for them to contact the owner of this portfolio and buy the portfolio from them. A web page can be normally split into sections for introduction, content, information. Now let's go down to an example. Here we have 2 sections in a document. Here we have 2 sections talking about WWF. It's talking about it, and then where it was founded and all. And then in the second one, it's telling WWF panda symbol. So that means it's talking about the WWF panda symbol and where it originated from, and why and where was it, and where did they got that kind of idea from. Now let's go to Visual Studio Code to see how the section looks like. as you can see here, we have the same thing that was shown before, just our paragraphs are kind of long, so that's why they're taking a lot of space. So let me just make them a little bit like short and all. Now let's run this to see what's going to happen. Now as you can see here, in our sections are like divs, but it's easier for the people who bought this site and want to see what they're using, like it's div or a section. So they don't know anything about HTML, or they just bought the portfolio thinking it's very nice and all. So they wanted to change something, but they don't understand what is a div. So section can be used for the people who can't understand the div. What is the meaning of div? Why is it being used here? So that's the speciality of section, because it's very easy for people, the developers, and many people who bought this kind of sites to understand how you can change this. Because a div, nobody would understand. Whoever doesn't know HTML or not, they won't have a likelihood to understand this kind of coding, since they just bought it because they like it. So that's why section is very useful in these kind of situations. Now let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation to learn about more. Now here we have the article element. The article element specifies an independent, self-contained element, and an article should make sense on its own, and it should be possible to distribute it independently from the rest of the website. Here's some examples of where article elements can be used. An article element can be used from forum posts, blog posts, user comments, product cards, newspaper articles. So this is used to print. Suppose you're printing this kind of website. Suppose you're printing you're buying a website like this kind of website. So you need some sense of how to change this code, because they probably put some dummy text, so you have to change it. But if you ask someone to change it, they'll probably ask you money. So that's why there's cinematic elements, because cinematic elements make it easier for everybody to understand, and it makes it easier for people who don't understand HTML at all. As you can see here, you have 3 articles here, but there's only 2 articles because the next article is in the next page. As you can see here, our first article is talking about Google Chrome and when did it get released and what is it the most popular web browser today. And here we have Mozilla Firefox. And then if we go to the next one, we have Microsoft Edge. Microsoft Edge is a web browser developed by Microsoft. It was released in 2015. Microsoft Edge replaced Internet Explorer. That's the articles are saying. Now let's go to Visual Studio Code to run that code. As you can see here, have the same code that was shown before, but just with the header 1. Now let's run this to see what's going to happen. As you can see here, you have 3 articles, and then on top of them we have a header 1 for all of 3 of them, and we have the parent header 1 where saying the article element. Now let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation to learn about more. Here we have an example 2 where we're using CSS to style the article elements. So we gave a class to the parent article, which is class all browsers, which is the class equals to all browsers, all hyphen browsers. And here we style the all browsers dot a class called all browsers with a margin of 0, a padding of 5 pixels, a background color of light gray. Here we are also styling the all browsers class, but inside of that there's a header 1 and that should have a class of browser, and then we are giving a margin of 10 pixels, padding of 5 pixels, and we gave the header 1 a class name of browser. So this you can see here, article class browser, and we are styling that also with the header 1 with a margin of 10 pixels, a padding of 5 pixels. Here we're styling a browser with a background color of white, and we're styling our browser, but inside of the browser we're styling the header 2 and the paragraph inside of the browser class. We're styling the paragraph and the header 2 with a margin of 4 pixels, a font size of 90%. Now let's go to Visual Studio Code to run this. As you can see here, we have the same code that was shown before, just with the same articles that was shown in this one, the same articles that was shown in that previous question. Now as you can see here the code made all of these look very nice and made it look like a newspaper article or like some kind of article which is talking about the most popular browsers. Now let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation to learn about more. Here we have some more code. Now nesting articles inside of sections or vice versa. The article element specifies independent self-contained content. The section element defines a section in a browser. As we know, these both are kind of the same, but a section is used to define div block, different from the other sections or the articles or any other, because the section makes a section inside of a document. But we cannot use the definitions to decide how to nest those elements. No, we cannot. So you will find HTML pages with sections and elements containing article elements and article elements containing section elements. So you can give as many article elements, you can nest as many article elements inside of a section element, and it's the same as the section element. You can nest in how many sections you want to nest. You can nest it in an article or anything. Now here we have the next topic, which is HTML header element. The header element represents a container for introductory content or a set of navigational links. A header element typically contains one or more heading elements, like a header 1. It could be a header 1, header 2, header 3, or a header 6, or a header 5, or a header 4. It could also include a logo or an icon, or also include a authorship and information. Note, you can have several header elements in one HTML document. However, header cannot be placed within a footer, address, or another header element. Now let's go down to see the example. Here's an example of a header for an article. Here in our article, we have a header where it has a header 1. It's saying, what does WWF do? And here we have a paragraph where it's saying WWF mission. Here we closed our header, and then our article started with a paragraph saying stuff about WWF's mission. Now let's go to Visual Studio Code to visualize this. As you can see here, we have the same code that was shown before. Now let's run this to see what's going to happen. As you can see here, we have an article header which came very bolded. That means it's a header. That means it's a header 1. Everybody will instantly recognize it even in Visual Studio Code. Here we have a paragraph saying about WWF mission and another paragraph talking about it. Now let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation to learn about more. Now we have a header or HTML footer element. The footer element defines a footer for a document or section. A footer element typically contains authorship information, a copyright information, a contact information, a sitemap, a back to top links, a related document. So in any case of having a footer, they all have at least one of these to make it a header. I recommend you having your copyright information, so nobody can copy it that instantly. Nobody can copy it unless you give permission to them. And we have a sitemap. Suppose it's a shop, like a t-shirt selling shop that you put up on suppose you made a shop for that and you put it up on Marina Bay, next to Marina Bay Sands, or like somewhere close to there. So you could give the sitemap to that location and it will send it, and the sitemap will show that location. And related documents you can give, but that I don't recommend it, and some authorship information. But you can also have several footer elements in one document. It's not compulsory for you to have only one footer element. Suppose you're creating two projects in one. You just want to have some footers like about content, a footer about like sitemaps and all. Now here we have an example about this footer. Here you have a footer section in our document where it has a paragraph talking about the author, his refson. Here we have a paragraph where we have the A tag. We have a herf where it's saying Malito. Malito means just like a Gmail, and we gave heyg example.com, which will send it to the Gmail account, so you can Gmail them about something. I want to buy this site at this kind of budget, like $100 or something. Now let's go to Visual Studio Code to learn about this. You can see here we have the same code that was shown before. Now let's run this to see what's going to happen. As you can see here, we have our paragraph and then we have our link. Now let's press this link. As you can see here, when we press this link, nothing happens. As you all know that when you give something like a herb, you should give a URL which actually works. So when I click this, or I even drag it, nothing will work because there is no account, absolutely no site which has this certain name. When I try dragging it and putting it here, it sends me back to my page since there's no page that is called Malito or HG example.com, or there's no Gmail called that. Now let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation to learn about more. HTML aside element. The aside element defines some content aside from the content. It is placed in like a sidebar, like a wire map where I showed you how it's supposed to look like. A aside is floating to the left, because we all have to use some kind of CSS to style it to make it more better and for it to float to the side. Because when you give aside, it doesn't float, because aside means which side can it be. So you should give a float of right. You should give at least one of them for the aside element to work. The aside content should be indirectly related to the surrounding content. That means there should be something surrounded next to it. Here we have an example where we have a paragraph talking about the Epcot Center. This Epcot Center where they visited Epcot Center this summer. Here we have our side where it's talking about the Epcot Center, where the paragraph is talking about it's a theme park at Disney World Resort, and it's talking all about that. Now let's go to Visual Studio Code to run this. As you can see here, we have the same code that was shown before. Now let's run this to see what's going to happen. As you can see here, we have a paragraph and we have our aside, because didn't come the aside because we never gave any CSS styling for it to come aside, because that's the default side that a aside will go. Now let's go to our PowerPoint presentation to learn about more. Here we have a second example where we are actually styling our aside element with a width of 30%, a padding of left, 15 pixels, a margin of left, and also 15 pixels and a float of right. Here we have a font style of italic, background color of light gray. Here and then our body started where we have a paragraph and the paragraph ended, and we have an aside. Inside of the aside we have some paragraph talking about the Epcot Center again, and then we have two more paragraphs which are talking same thing about the family enjoying it. Now let's go to Visual Studio Code to run this. As you can see here, we have the same code that was shown before. Now let's run this to see what's going to happen. And now as you can see here, wait, let me move my cam. We have our three paragraphs which are just talking all about the family, but they're all the same paragraphs talking about the same thing. Now aside, it actually came to the right side, this time talking about something else, about the Epcot Center, what it is, a theme park or playground or something. Now let's go to PowerPoint presentation, learn about more. Now, here we have our last topic, which is HTML figure and HTML fig caption element. The figure element specifies a self-contained content like illustrations, diagrams, photos, codes, listing and etc. The fig caption tag defines a caption for a figure element. The fig caption element, on the other hand, can be placed as the first or as the last child of the figure element. The image element defines the actual image / illustration. Now you may be thinking, what is illustration? Illustration means something like an optical illusion or like an image which looks very good. Now let's go to our Visual Studio Code for the last time, and then for the last time in our video, and then let's summarize this. As you can see here, we have a header 2, a paragraph that's talking about Pulga's most famous site. Here we have the figure, the same code that was shown before. The inside of a figure we have our image which has some styling of with 100%, and we have the fig caption. Now let's run this to see what's going to happen. As you can see here, we have our header 2, our paragraph, and this time we have our picture, where in our picture we have the fig one talking about where it is, Italy, Pulga and turtle. Now you may be wondering, where is this kind of thing? So when you hover on this, it says follow link, command plus click. But in Windows, it could be like control plus click. So when I hold command, I could see that coming blue, and when I press it, it shows me the image, and I can even magnify it to see what's going on in this image. Here we have a summary of all of our tags. Number 1, we have an article which defines an independent self-contained content. We have the aside where it defines a content aside from the page content. Here we have details which defines additional details that the user can view or hide. We have the fig caption which defines a caption for a figure element where it specifies the self-contained content like illustration, diagram, photos, code, listing, etc. Here we have a footer where it defines a footer for a document or a section. Here we have the header which specifies a header for a document or a section. And here we have the main which specifies the main content of a document. We have the mark which defines a marked / highlighted text as I told you before. Here we have the nav which defines the navigation links. Here we have the section where it defines a section in a document. Here we have the summary where it defines a visible heading for a details element. Here we have the last one on the list which is time which defines a date / time. So that's it for today, folks. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe to our channel kaviwebdesigns. And if you have any doubt, please comment in the comment box, and I will see you in the next video. Keep watching our videos. See you in the next video. Bye bye.